Please help me welcome Michael Goldman.
Take a look at this picture. How many different colored circles do you see? How many see 3 different colored circles? Anybody see 2? There's actually only 1. The horizontal lines screw with our focus, and we lose the accuracy of the color of the circles. How many black dots do you see in this picture? I see some confused looks. It's tough. There's actually 12. But the dots magically appear and disappear depending on where you look because human beings have bad peripheral vision. Again, our focus is screwing with us. Now, optical illusions are interesting because they show how our focus fools us. But it's a lot more important than that. If you change your focus, you change your life. It's back in 2006. My son Richie was 12 years old. On this particular morning, I was having a conversation with my business coach, Susan. Susan asked me if I had done all those things I committed to doing the week before. Susan, don't even go there. We had a week from hell with my son. It was nothing but trouble at school, screaming and yelling at home. I just couldn't focus. I don't know what I'm going to do. You see, my son has something called Asperger's syndrome. How many of you know what Asperger's is? For those that don't, it's like a high-functioning form of autism. And over the last 10 years, we had some good weeks, but a whole lot of weeks from hell. And then Susan asked me what I thought I did to cause the bad week. Excuse me? I didn't cause his Asperger's. It's not like I dropped him on his head or something. It's not my fault. We've been having these problems since he's 2 years old. Susan sensed my anger and changed her tactics. She just wanted to know how the week from hell started. So here it is. It's about 7:30 in the evening. I had had a really tough day. I just wanted to get home and relax and unwind. I walk in the front door. My son's down in the den playing his video game, not even acknowledging that I walked through the door. My wife yells from up in the kitchen, "Richie, it's time to come up for dinner." And I could tell by the way she said it, that wasn't the first time she asked. I don't need this. I had a tough day. This kid knows exactly what buttons to push to piss me off. Why is everything such a struggle? Why can't he just come up for dinner? Just getting him to brush his teeth and take a shower is a nightmare. He can't focus in school. He has no friends. How's he ever going to get through high school? Is he ever going to get into college? Is he ever going to get married and have a normal life? And with all this swirling in my head, I explode on this poor kid, not physically. "Richie, you come upstairs for dinner right now. I just have to get to a save point on my game." And I did something you never do to a 12-year-old that hasn't gotten to a save point on his game. I walked over to the wall and I pulled the plug. He's screaming and yelling and crying. I'm screaming. I don't think I was crying, but we're yelling at each other as we go up to dinner, where my wife and daughter are looking at us both like we're lunatics. He's looking for every reason to prove I'm the worst father in the world. I'm looking for every reason to prove he's the worst son in the world. We had a horrible dinner, a bad night, and a week from hell. Then Susan asked if I'd ever have a week that started out in a similar way but ended very differently. That was easy. Just 2 weeks before, I had a great day. Feeling great, I walked through the front door. My son is down playing his video game, not acknowledging I walked through the door. My wife yells from the kitchen, "Richie, it's time to come up for dinner." And I look down at my son, who's got these problems I don't really understand. Sometimes the world is so overwhelming to him that the only way he can cope is by hyper-focusing on a video game. And I thought, how could I be the best dad for him? So I looked down at him. "Hey, Richie, get to a save point on your game, but I want to see you upstairs in 10 minutes. Okay, buddy?" "Sure, Dad." Did he come upstairs in 10 minutes? Of course not. It was 15 or 20. But he came upstairs. We had a fun dinner. We had a great evening. We had a beautiful week. Then Susan asked me the obvious killer question. What was the difference between the week from hell and the good week? And that's when the tears did come down. Because I realized in that moment how powerful I was, but not in a good way. I realized in that moment it was up to me. I looked back at the last 10 years of my life, and I thought, how many of those weeks from hell were me? My attitude, my emotional state. What had I done to my son? What had I done to my family? It was up to me. And I challenge all of you, no matter what you have going on in your lives, personally, professionally, and let's face it, it's the same damn thing. It's up to you. In my book, Breakthrough Leadership Team, I focus on the 6 pillars of creating a great team. The first pillar is mastering self-leadership. You can't lead a great team until you know how to lead yourself. What we're going to focus on is the first part of that pillar, and that's all about mastering your focus. Back in 1986, a German neuroscientist named Dr. Manfred Zimmermann estimated that we have 11 million bits of information hitting us every second. But that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is our brains can only process 126. 126 bits. Now, before you get your calculators out, that's 0.001% of the 11 million. 0.001% of reality. So we're making it up. We make up our own reality, and our behavior is based on that reality. Let's do a little test. I want you to look around when I say so. Take 5 seconds, spin around in your chair, look for everything, including what people are wearing, everything that's the color blue. Do that now. Okay, come on back. Now, without looking around and in your head, I want you to list all the things you saw that were green. I see some confused looks. It's hard to do, right? Because your 126 bits was focused on what was blue, and that's what it came back with. Now, this is not just theory. There's a part of our brain that causes this to happen. Has anybody ever heard of something called the reticular activating system, or RAS? A few of you. The reticular, and by the way, where it is, so you know where it is? If you feel the back of your head, that soft spot, right where your spine meets your brain, that's where your reticular activating system is. And it's like a Google search for your brain. Think about the week from hell with my son. My reality was that he was the worst son in the world. He was making me angry on purpose. So I looked for that. On the good week, My reality was he's got this lifelong challenge. How can I be the best dad for him? That's what my reticular activating system was searching for. How many of you have ever bought a car and as soon as you left the lot, you saw way more of that year, make, model, color than you've ever seen before? Is that because everybody followed you and bought the same car you did? Of course it's not. It's because that's what you're focused on. So we literally have it in our neurology that we have this Google search for our brain and we tell it what to focus on. So why not take more control of that focus? Why not tell our reticular activating systems where we want to focus? It all starts with focus. Our focus drives our feelings. Our feelings drive actions, and those actions drive the outcomes we create in our lives. So now I'm going to talk to you about two strategies to switch your focus, two focus switches that help you go from a disempowering focus, one where you're feeling stuck wherever you are, personally and professionally, to a more empowering focus, where you create the results you want in your life and you become the best version of you. Let's talk about the first focus switch. How many of you over the last 24 hours have gotten really angry at someone? If your hand isn't up, you're lying. Maybe it was some maniac who cut you off on the highway. Maybe it was someone at work. Maybe it was a family member. Maybe it was someone in your community. We tend to get angry because we believe that person, we assume that person had negative intent. That maniac who cut you off on the highway was in the car laughing, just knowing they were doing something ridiculous and life-threatening, but doing it anyway. Your son who wouldn't get off his video game was just trying to piss you off on purpose. We assume negative intent. When we assume negative intent, we get frustrated and we lash out. We lose our ability to have conversations, to build relationships. We lose our ability to solve the problem. Well, there's something I learned a number of years ago. And I say I learned it, but I actually need to relearn it every single day. And it's called the law of positive intent. The law of positive intent says everyone is just trying to do the best they can with the resources they have. Now, hear what I'm saying. That doesn't mean everyone's doing the right thing. This isn't some optimistic world is wonderful philosophy. It doesn't say everybody's doing the right thing, but it says everybody's trying to do the best they can. Maybe they don't have the resources you have. Maybe they don't have the information you have. Or maybe they know something you don't know. Maybe that maniac who cut you off on the highway was rushing to the hospital bed of a loved one. Maybe your son who wouldn't get off his video game was just trying to escape the noise and the overwhelm. If you believe in positive intent, if you believe everyone's just trying to do the best they can with the resources they have, how might that open you up to new questions, new conversations, stronger relationships? So this first switch is called the intention switch. It's a switch from a focus on the negative intent in others to a focus on a positive intent. How do you make that switch? The way you make any switch is by stopping and asking yourself an empowering question. In this case, I want you to ask yourself, where am I assuming negative intent when someone is really just trying to do the best they can? Picture someone in your mind right now. How might assuming positive intent open new conversations, reduce the frustration and anger? So that's the first control switch. Let's talk about the second one. For the second control switch, we're going to talk about something called the locus of control. Locus is just a fancy word for center or point. You could have an external locus of control or an internal locus of control. With an external locus of control, things happen to you. You say things like, my problem is people always something. Or my problem is our clients never something. The problem is out there. And I promise you, as long as the problem is out there, you're not fixing it. With an internal locus of control, you make things happen. With an internal locus of control, you say things like, my problem is I always, or my problem is I never. Let's look at some examples of a shift from external locus of control to an internal locus of control. With an external locus of control, you might say, he doesn't get it. My team doesn't seem to care about our results. How come our clients are so unforgiving whenever we have a problem? Let's shift to an internal locus of control. How can I do a better job of communicating so he understands? How can I do a better job of instilling a sense of ownership in my team? What could we do to build stronger, more loyal client relationships? So the control switch is a switch from things happen to me to I make things happen. And let me be clear. An internal locus of control doesn't mean it's your fault. My son's Asperger's was not my fault, but I'm absolutely in control of how I respond to it. So once again, how do you make that switch? Like all focus switches, you stop and ask yourself an empowering question. In this case, the question is, where am I blaming where I should be taking responsibility? Or it might be, what is within my control that I could impact? Because if you change your focus, you change your life. Now, we talked about 2 focus switches, but they're endless. What focus switch would change your life? Maybe it's a switch from a focus on what you don't want, which causes frustration, to a focus on what you want. Maybe it's a switch from a focus on, I'll be happy when I reach some goal, to focusing on how you could be happy now. They're endless. The quality of your life is the quality of your focus. My son is 27 years old now. He still lives at home. He may never be able to live independently, but that's okay. We still have our challenges, but we have a great relationship now. I sometimes think back to the 10 years of our lives I screwed up. But what's more important is I have the right focus now. And I work on that focus every single day. And I want to challenge you to do the same. Because if you change your focus, you change your life, and the lives of the people you love most. Thank you.